Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 369. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the morning of Sunday, July the 28th, from the James Strong Studio in Western St. Charles County. Topic of today's podcast, things we are told. And we're told lots of things throughout the day, week, month, year, our lives. And the prudent individuals have filters that understand that sometimes what people are saying to them, sometimes it's pretty much true. Sometimes it's not really true at all, but we get it. Sometimes it's a flat out lie, and quite often we get that too. The bottom line is, when people tell you something, if they're telling you the truth, you appreciate it. If they're hyping it, you get it. And if they're lying to you, you can usually tell. So I don't know why people just wouldn't just tell the truth, but for whatever reason, they don't. And what I mean by, there's telling the truth, there's a lie, and there's the stuff in between. The stuff in between, I mean, like, if you see an advertisement on television, ABC Car Company, we have the best cars in the industry. Okay, of course they're going to say they have the best because they want you to buy it. And what they mean by the best is maybe they have the most backseat legroom, the best, the most, okay? But it's an advertisement. You get it. Just so they don't flat out lie, you understand what they're trying to say, okay? That's what I mean by the thing in between. But we're told so many things by so many people, and I don't know why somebody would just flat out lie when they talk to you about things. And I'm going to give a couple of examples, more than a couple. I'm going to give a lot of examples about how people tell you certain things and why they say what they do, or why they say what they say, I guess I should say, and why they expect you to act in this way. And quite often you just smile or sometimes laugh and you act the absolute opposite way. In other words, they didn't put 15 seconds into their thought, or perhaps they put a lot of time into their thought, but it wasn't directed at you. Okay. And I get that too. Language for younger people. I don't understand that language. They use different words I'm not familiar with. However, they're not talking to me, so I get that. I understand that completely. Okay. Case in point number one. This is the 28th of July. We have an election coming up early next month. Okay. A primary here in the state of Missouri, probably many other parts of the country too. And it's more than every other ad on television or the radio now is a political ad. And in this part of the country, Democrats are an afterthought. The city of St. Louis, parts of St. Louis County, there are Democrats. Much of St. Louis County, all of St. Charles County and surrounding counties, there's not a Democrat to be seen, which is unfortunate because it's caused the Republicans to be absolutely horrible because they have no competition. And here's what we have on the political ads. On the Republican side, everybody is pushing the other out of their way, saying, no. I love Donald Trump and Donald Trump loves me. All my competitors hate Donald Trump and Donald Trump hates them. And they're all saying this. And we had a candidate for United States Senator? Yeah, Governor. Missouri governor, I believe. Yeah, it is governor. And they're all saying Bob Onder is the guy who's just absolutely horrible. Bob Onder's horrible, okay? He hates Trump. Trump hates him. They educated me. I think to myself, okay, I'm going to vote for Bob Onder if he hates Trump and Trump hates him, because, surprise, here's a Republican who actually doesn't just mirror what Donald Trump says. And then Bob Onder gets on and says, you know what? Those people are all wrong. I love Trump more than the rest of them, and Trump loves me, and here's proof. But I'm not like so-and-so who really hates Trump. Now, here's the thing. I never heard of so-and-so before. I didn't know this individual was even running. So thanks to the ads, I now have somebody else to look at, okay? But then you think to yourself, okay, Strong, well, just vote for the Democrat if you don't like these Republicans. The Democratic Party's ads in this part of the country are just, they get in line and and these are my words, not theirs, but the inference is there. I guarantee I will kill more babies than the last person. This person can't be trusted to kill babies because they side with the Republicans or they didn't side with President Biden. I get pro-choice and pro-life, okay? And I will have a civil discussion with a pro-choice person, even though I don't agree with them. But when you get in line and say, no, I'm the bigger baby killer, you've totally lost me. I can't vote for you. I can't do it. Are you kidding? So people tell you things and I don't get what they mean. I don't know why they're trying to say that. And again, maybe they're not talking to me. Apparently they're not, because except for the Bob Onder ads, who he spent good money educating me on looking into people I didn't even know existed. That's the only education I've gotten out of any of these ads. The Olympics started the other day, and every 4 years, I guess every 4 years, every 4 years they have the Summer Olympics, every 4 years the Winter Olympics. So every 2 years we have the Olympics. This year they're in Paris. And personally, I don't know why any country would want to host the Olympics, because it's a logistical nightmare, it's a security nightmare, and it seems to be a money loser every time. Paris was probably going to be no exception, but they wanted to do it, and good for them. Okay, I don't know what the Parisians or the French think of this, but their government decided to take it on. And as far as the Olympics go, the Olympics are fine. I don't have a problem with the Olympics at all. Most of the events, I just don't care for the sport, so I don't watch it. I think the basketball games have been interesting because I like basketball. Probably a few other events, some of the track and field events I enjoy. Are they even playing baseball this year? I don't think so. But many of the events I just don't care for. I'm not going to watch the fencing event. Okay, I'm not going to watch that. I'm not going to watch. What are some of the other events I can't even think of? The golf. I'm not going to watch that. Okay, there's just lots of events I'm just not going to watch because the sport doesn't interest me. But the whole medals and the competition and the camaraderie and the teamwork, I get that. And the Olympics are fine. The opening ceremonies are interesting, if nothing else. Actually, the best one I've ever seen was the one put on by the Chinese that year. I mean, basically, they just threw all kinds of money at it, and it was very cool. And the French did something this year that was interesting. First of all, carrying a torch was Snoop Dogg. Now, I have nothing against Snoop Dogg. I guess he still makes music, but he's more of a celebrity type, okay? He's older. He's been around for a long time. He's a spokesman. He's on TV commercials a lot, okay? And from what I understand, he's doing some commentary during the Olympics, which is fine. He carried the torch, one of the torch carriers. No, why would you pick a pot-smoking rapper to carry a torch? You're not an athlete. You've never been associated with athletes. Now, somebody very dear to me said, well, it's all about the money. And besides, he's a commentator. Okay, well, he's a commentator. Commentators don't carry the torches, okay? I don't know why they did that, and that one caused me to scratch my head. The other one that caused me to do more than scratch my head was they decided to pay tribute to the the trans community, the gay, lesbian, etc. They decided to pay homage to them for whatever reason, but they decided to do it. And they had a reenactment or a picture of the Last Supper with a bunch of trans people there. My question to you, what does mocking Christianity have anything to do with sports? It's only a way to offend people. I get it. The whole Christian thing is not the thing that it used to be. Once upon a time, there were a lot of Christians. There still are, but it's not in. It's not cool. It's not hip. And we have a whole society of people who say, you know what? You need to accept everybody for what they are. I'm different. You need to accept me. And actually, I agree with that. to a point. You shouldn't hold animosity towards or discriminate against anybody for what they believe or look like or whatever. But what did these people who insist on being accepted and insist on not being mocked and ridiculed, what did they do? They made fun of and mocked and ridiculed the Christian faith. Jesus Christ, who is the pillar, one of the three pillars, I guess, of Christian faith. How does that have anything to do with sports? Again, these are things that we were told, things that, this is just all in the genre of sports, and it just isn't. Switching horses once again to a positive, and it's one of the funniest things in my life that's ever happened. One of the worst choices, worst decisions ever made by a Major League Baseball team. And it happened earlier this month. Actually, it happened many, many years ago, but it happens the 1st of July. The 1st of July is what's called Bobby Bonilla Day. Now, I know we're a bit long in the tooth with this. This happened almost a month ago, but I wanted to talk about it today, about Bobby Bonilla Day. What is Bobby Bonilla Day? Well, that's the year that Bobby Bonilla gets a check for, I think I want to say it's $1.1 million from the New York Mets. Now, Bobby Bonilla hasn't played a ball game for 20 years, but he still gets paid $1.1 million every year, and will for next, I think, like 8, 9, 10, 12 more years he gets that money. Why, you asked? Well, because that was his contract. Well, why would the Mets agree to a contract like that? Because Bobby Bonilla, in his day, he was a good ball player. Wasn't a great ball player. I mean, he had a few really good years. He's not a Hall of Famer, not even close, but he was a good ball player. Played for the Cardinals for a while even. He played for a lot of people. But he signed a pretty big contract with the Mets once upon a time, many years ago. And the Mets came to him and they say, hey, look, and these numbers are off a bit, but it was like let's say a $5 million contract. And they said, you know what? We don't want to pay you the $5 million this year. Would you rather let us just defer that for 10 years? And then starting 10 years from today, we pay you $1 million for the next 30 years. And Bonilla says, is he $5 million now, $30 million later? Yeah, I'll take that. So he agreed to it. Now, here's where the Mets thought they were being real smart. They said, look, we can invest that $5 million with this guy who's been working with us. We can turn that $5 million into $30 million and then take 30 years to pay it off. Look how much better we're gonna come out in the end. And they did that. And they took that money, that $5 million, and they invested it with a guy whose name was Bernie Madoff. Yeah, that Bernie Madoff. He lost it all, and they still have to pay Bobby Bonilla $1.1 million for 30 years. The things that we are told. They told Bobby Bonilla this, and he's thinking, okay, I'm not a Rhodes Scholar. I'm not a Harvard graduate, but I can do math. This thing looks really good to me. Where do I sign? The things we're told and the actions we take sometimes affect us for a long, long, long time. Another thing that we're told, another thing that is a big deal nowadays is the whole climate change thing. And actually, some time ago, they changed it from global warming to climate change, which is, to be fair, a more accurate description because the climate is constantly changing. And right now, it is getting warmer. But the whole climate change thing, it's a fact, but the school is still out as to how much influence greenhouse gases actually have on climate change. Most scientists will tell you it has some. Some say more than others, okay? But the bottom line is, unless you live in Hawaii, you need to heat your home, and you can't heat your home unless you produce a greenhouse gas right now anyway, because we don't have enough solar power out there. We don't have enough wind power. You got to do natural gas or coal or something, okay? So you're going to have a carbon footprint of some sorts. But this was a story that came out, And the headline was one thing. And I read this headline and I thought, there's got to be more to this, because one of the most dishonest, I'll use that word, one of the most dishonest things I see with the media now are misleading headlines. I mean, they'll throw a headline out there that has nothing to do with the actual story. The actual story is quite often pretty truthful, okay? But the headline is just, not to say it's hype, not to say it's man bites dog. And then there's not even a man or a dog in the story, okay? You know what I'm trying to say? This particular story, it was like greenhouse gases change the rotation of the earth. I'm like, what? Let's look at this. Okay, and the headline says this, and the story reads something along the lines that, look, if it feels like the days are dragging on more than usual, scientists say that it's true. The days are getting longer. In fact, researchers from the ETH Zurich, that's some organization, have revealed that climate change is causing the length of days on Earth to increase at, quote, an unprecedented rate. Wow, this is a big deal. The length of the days on Earth are going to increase at an unprecedented rate because of climate change. And here's why. The theory is, they like to say, the science says, as polar ice melts in Greenland and Antarctica, the Earth's center of gravity shifts towards the equator, gradually slowing down the planet's rotation. Now, if emission levels are not reduced, researchers predict that this shift could add a lot of time to the end of the day by the year 2100. Yeah. You know how much, if we don't stop right now and fix this problem, do you know how much time we're going to add to the end of to a day by the year 2100? Which, by the way, by the year 2100, very few people listening to my podcast will be alive. Okay, but when that happens, if we don't change this right now, you know how much it's going to add to a day? 2.62 milliseconds. Now remember, earlier in the story and on the headline, it said, it's going to increase the days at an unprecedented rate. 2.62 milliseconds. Okay. Oh, and by the way, that's not all climate change, but much of that is. Okay. How much of it? Well, tidal friction, that has something to do with it. In fact, tidal friction alone, which is nothing we can do about tidal friction. Okay. Tidal friction alone will add 2.4 milliseconds to the length of the day. In fact, it actually adds, it adds it over millions of years. In fact, from 1990 till today, researchers have estimated that just the tidal friction has changed 0.8 milliseconds, added 0.8 milliseconds to the day. The day is that much longer, 8 milliseconds. Higher emissions makes it even more than that. So 2.4 milliseconds will be added to the length of the day starting in 2021. And if we don't do anything about climate change, an additional 0.2 milliseconds will be added to the end of the day by 2021. You know how much a millisecond is? It's 1/1000th of a second. So if we don't stop climate change and global warming right now, by the year 2021, we will add 0.004 seconds to the end of each day. I'm going to stop driving my car now. The things that we are told and what we're supposed to believe and do about it. This story, I believe every bit of this story. I think it's true. 2.6 milliseconds are going to be added to the end of the day by the year 2100. And we can't do anything about 2.4 milliseconds, but we can do something about 0.2 milliseconds. We can do a millisecond is a thousandth of a second, and we can do something about something that's 2% of that. I'm sorry, 20% of that. Isn't that incredible? Why would you waste time doing this? I'll tell you why. Because it's clickbait. I clicked on it. I read the story. And what probably happened with this was there was just some paper that was put out. Hey, if this happens, this is going to happen, because these scientists and and PhD students, they put this stuff out all the time because they need to do a paper and they throw out facts. And actually, this was probably vetted, researched, and actually, I tend to believe it. But it was the hype of the headline. And the dirty little secret is most people don't read the stories. They look at the headlines. They go, oh my goodness, look at this. And then when they start talking about it to their buddies over beer, people go crazy because they haven't read the story. They just looked at the headline. The things we were told, half of it is our fault, because if we just look at the headline and then run our pie holes about it, isn't it kind of our fault because we didn't vet the story and call the people out when they hype stuff too much? Kind of yes. The very last one is, to me, the biggest deal. And the reason it's the biggest deal is because we have elections all the time, okay? The Olympics happen all the time, and they always do something silly. Bobby Bonilla Day is always a good joke once a year. The whole ultimate climate change story, you get that stuff all the time too. But the biggest thing is there's a handful of companies out there that I really like, okay? Most businesses, most companies, okay, if you provide a product or service that I kind of like, I'm going to buy your stuff, okay? I'd rather you not get political, but if you provide a good product or service, I'm going to buy it unless you go off the rails with something and become just a pariah. I'm going to buy your stuff, okay? One of the best companies out there that provides the best product, actually service of all, is Southwest Airlines. I love Southwest Airlines. This is a guy who didn't fly Southwest too much. I used to fly TWA on business, and then I would fly American. But I actually stopped flying American. I stopped flying stopped flying American after TWA was bought by American. Then American eliminated the St. Louis hub, so I didn't have a whole lot of choices. You can still fly American, but you can fly them to Dallas or Chicago or New York or Los Angeles and a handful of other places. But, you got to fly to a hub because St. Louis isn't a hub. Southwest is a hubless type of airline. So you can fly lots and lots and lots of places, okay? And they have daily flights to most places. And their flights are reasonable. And you don't have to pay for a bag. And. They're really a good airline. They do things differently. And I really like Southwest Airlines a lot, a whole lot. They make things simple. The legacy airlines, American, Delta, United, there's nothing wrong with them. They're fine. But they've got so many rules, so many regulations, so many hoops to jump through. On Southwest, okay, this is what a ticket costs. You want to board early? It costs a little bit more. You want to drink with your flight? It costs a little bit more. I don't care to board early. I don't care to get a drink with my flight. I'll sit where I want to just so there's a seat available. And I enjoy picking my own seat on Southwest Airlines. Why? Well, because if I get on a plane, and first thing I do when I get on the plane with Southwest Airlines, I ask the flight attendant, hey, are we full today? And she may say something like, yeah, every seat's going to be taken. Okay, doesn't really matter where I sit. I'll just get an aisle seat because I'm going to have somebody next to me on the middle row. For those of you that don't know, Southwest flies 737 aircraft, so it's 3 and 3. 3 on the right, 3 on the left, seats that is, with an aisle in the middle. I like the aisle because a little room to stretch your legs, okay? Now, if she says something like, yeah, well, there's a lot of open seats on this flight. Plane holds 150. We only sold 100 tickets. Okay, now I know how to get a seat where I'm not going to have somebody sitting next to me. So there's even more room. And what you do is you get in like row 10 or 11 or 12, okay? Because what happens is the blast of the people, nobody wants to sit in the middle row, or middle seat if they don't have to. So people will go all the way down to the last seat, see nothing, and then come back. And they'll find a seat before they get back to you, okay? You don't want to sit in the first, second, or third, or fourth row because people plop right down there because they don't want to walk any further. So that magic number is kind of like 9 through 12, I've found. That's just my own unscientific way of doing things, okay? I like choosing my own seat. Southwest has recently said, nah, we're going to change things. Now, Southwest is an airline. They have very devoted customers. I'm one of them. And Southwest travelers have helped make them the biggest U.S. carrier for domestic passengers. And they like the airline because they're a bit different. The flight attendants crack corny jokes and low-cost consciousness for travelers. They go to the airlines because you don't have to pay to check a bag. In fact, you get 2 bags checked for free. I mean, they're no cheaper than American, but if you travel with 2 bags on American, it's going to cost you $50 a bag, both ways. So it's an extra $200, okay? Southwest doesn't charge that. So that's a rarity among domestic carriers. In fact, I don't know of any domestic carriers, unless you have status, that give you a free check bag. Southwest gives you 2. Now, Thursday of last week, Southwest surprised the faithful customers when it jettisoned one of its most beloved idiosyncrasies, the free-for-all seating system. Now, rather than getting a specific seat in advance of a flight, Southwest lets you just pick whatever seat you want. Now, they decide, you know what, we're not going to do that anymore. And the people are throwing a fit. The customers, that is, like me. Guy named Roger Knight, he's a private equity investor in Connecticut. He said, Southwest has always had that extra sauce versus just being another one of the legacy carriers, which is true. Now they're doing things just like the rest of them. Guy named Bradley Bolin, he's a 64-year-old businessman from Minneapolis. And he said, look, the Southwest's latest changes signal that the carrier is morphing into just another United or Delta. Okay? Open seating appealed to him like it appeals to me because of how it puts all Southwest flyers on relatively equal footing since its cabin wasn't divided into separate classes. In fact, he says he doesn't like to walk through the first class thinking, okay, here's the people that are better than me. I got to walk past them because I don't have their status or their money, okay? I get that. But it's not that they're doing it. It's why they're doing it, okay? Southwest Chief Executive Bob Jordan said the airline's new boarding policies are expected to bring in more than roughly $1 billion that the carrier now makes by selling extras, including priority slots. Now, the added revenue comes as airlines face falling profits and a showdown with activist investor Elliott Investment Management, who bought a bunch of Southwest stock. Basically, they're not making enough money. And if they do it this way, they can make at least $1 billion more a year. How do you think they're going to do that? By charging for seats. In fact, here's what they're going to do. One of the spokesmen for Southwest Airlines says, look, we already have more legroom than the other airlines. And they're not wrong, okay? Southwest gives you a bit more legroom. So what are they going to do? You can have that legroom, but it's only going to be on certain assigned seats, and you got to pay more for it. So if you're not going to pay more for it, we're going to crunch you up just a little bit more, okay? But the biggest reason why I don't like what they've done is because they've said, the reason they said that they did what they did. Southwest CEO Jordan said he expects the company will win skeptics over. And so, in fact, yeah, I know some people don't like this, but you'll be fine with it. In fact, he was taken aback by the overwhelming support in a company survey. He said, I was surprised that 80% of the people we surveyed thought it was a good idea. Mr. Jordan, that's just a lie. It's a flat out lie. Now, did I talk to all the Southwest Airlines people who fly Southwest Airlines? No, of course not. But I talked to a lot of them. And it wasn't an 80-20 split. It was a 100-0 split. None of the people that I talked to think it's a good idea. Now, who do I talk to? Do I talk to the family that flies once every 3 years? No. Did I talk to the 80-year-old woman who just wanted to go ahead and fly to see her daughter-in-law once every 3 years? No. I talk to business travelers like me who travel anytime, anything from 3 to 4 to 5, 10 times a month. Okay. They love Southwest. And now there's no need for them to fly Southwest because they don't like the way the legacy carriers do it. So to say that 80% of the people that you surveyed like this idea is one of two things. It's either a flat out lie where you made something up because you want to make more money because your shareholders are demanding it, or you didn't ask the right people. And what do I mean by that? Well, you can have your hand on the scale with surveys, okay? Statistics and surveys, if you're not, if you're disingenuous about the way you do surveys, you can make them say anything you want. My suspicion is that Mr. Jordan wanted it to say this so he could do it. Look, this isn't me. This is the people saying this is what we want, so this is what we have to do. He said this will help families. How will it help families? Well, now families can just go ahead and buy seats together and they can sit together. And that's not exactly true, but in theory it's true. Because all the family has to do is pay extra money for everybody and get an assigned seat and go ahead and get on the airplane. Yeah, just pay extra. But they can do that now, by the way. If you pay $40 extra, or better yet, here's what I do. When the trophy wife and I fly, I mean, I have status. I'm A+ with them, so I board anywhere from A15 to A50, okay? Usually between A25 and 35. That's generally where I am. So I can sit wherever I want. When the trophy wife comes with me on business or on pleasure, I guess, if I'm on business and she's on pleasure, we're both on pleasure, I board first. And what I do is I sit on the aisle and I put my bag on the middle seat. And then she comes in and sits down. Now, quite often somebody will come in and they'll say, is that window seat taken? And I'll say no and let them sit in the window seat. Then by the time my wife gets on, nobody's going to want a middle seat. Do I save the middle seat for her? Sure. Actually, I slide over the middle seat and I give her the aisle. But usually, nobody wants to take a middle seat. If you say I'm saving this middle seat for my wife, they're not going to care because they'll sit in the middle seat behind me or in front of me or someplace else. Saving a middle seat is not a preferred seat, okay? So that's how we sit together. Pay $40 and you can board early and save a seat for the other person, all your family if you want to, okay, within reason. So you can do it right now. Also, Southwest has family boarding. What does family boarding mean? Well, after the A's are all done boarding, family boarding happens. So you can board with your family. And unless you got 25 kids, you can sit together. Now, it's going to be in the back of the plane, but that's okay. You're not paying anything extra for it. You just get to sit together in the back of a plane if you have family boarding. So that problem's already solved. Don't say we're doing this for the family. You're not doing this for the family. You're doing this so you can charge more money and make more money. Now, you may say to yourself, well, come on, Strong. You tout yourself as being a capitalist. Why can't they just be okay with making more money? Business needs to operate long term. In fact, I had a meeting with one of the chief engineers from Nestle Purina last week, and he loves his company because they spend tons of money on R&D. He said, we're a Swiss-held company. He said, and the Swiss are very patient people. They realize that they're in it for the long haul. Their R&D does not report to manufacturing. Their R&D does not report to shareholders. R&D reports to R&D because R&D is necessary. And Nestle understands, look, we know we're taking a hit for the profits right now because of R&D, but 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now, it's going to pay dividends. And they've been around for well over 100 years, so it makes sense, okay? Southwest, for a long time, has made money. They still make money, by the way. They're not losing money. And the dirty little secret is the main reason Southwest isn't making the money that they could be making is because they've had to cut out flights. And they've had to cut out flights because they don't have enough airplanes. And they don't have enough airplanes because they made the decision to fly only 737 so that pilots, mechanics, all the planes are the same. And Boeing doesn't seem to know how to make airplanes anymore. So they're way behind on delivering airplanes to Southwest and other people. If Southwest was able to take delivery of all the airplanes that they ordered, they'd be just fine. But they can't, so they're not. So a word to the wise to some of these investors who are impatient and want to make money right now. Look at the track record of Southwest doing things differently over the years. I mean, these legacy carriers are making good money right now. Right now. They didn't during the pandemic. but the few years before the pandemic, they did. But many of these airlines, American included, they went decades losing money every single year. In fact, you talk about the merger between a few years back between American Airlines and U.S. Air. Oh, yeah, well, American bought U.S. Air. No, they didn't. U.S. Air bought American. Well, you're wrong, Strong, because they don't call it U.S. Air anymore. They call it American. Yeah, that's right. U.S. Air bought American because they were losing money hand over fist, got them for a cheap price, but recognized more people know American Airlines than U.S. Air, and they changed the name of the company. American Airlines lost billions of dollars for decades, but then made some money, then lost again during the pandemic, and now they're making it again. It's just going to be a matter of time before they start losing again, and Southwest makes money every year. Why won't they be patient? Keep with the game plan that works. And I understand you need to make adjustments to the way you do things. Southwest made an adjustment a few years back. Southwest, several years ago, maybe 10, maybe 20 years ago, you used to board, they give you some nasty, ugly, dog-eared card that some kid had chewed on, it looks like, or some dog had chewed on, and you had to hold that. And it was a certain color and a certain number, and you boarded according to that ugly card. Well, then you decide to put you in line with the numbers in a row, okay? You're A15. You stand up next to the numbers that are between A11 and A16. So you just stand somewhere around there and you kind of get on the plane, all right? It's how it works. It's pretty cool, and it works. So they made adjustments. They served peanuts once upon a time, which I love. Well, some people can't eat peanuts, and they can't be around them, so they got rid of the peanuts. And which, by the way, is another story for another day. They got rid of the peanuts, and they replaced it with a snack, and it's called Remy's Cookies or something like that. And actually, they're quite good. They're like sugar-coated graham crackers, and they're really quite good. But here's how they tout Remy's crackers. You know, some people can't eat peanuts, and it's always more fun when everybody can eat one snack. So the inference is, it's got the picture of this little boy named Remy, the kid or grandkid of whoever invented these things, which I can appreciate. Remy can't eat peanuts. He felt left out when other people ate peanuts, so they made these snacks, and now everybody can be included. We're all inclusive. We can all eat from the same thing, and everybody's happy, unless you have an intolerance to gluten. Now you're screwed, okay? So everybody isn't happy, just Remy. And that's kind of how Southwest Airlines has been. Look, we did a survey and everybody would be happier if we did this. No, we're not. I don't know why people tell us things when it's a lie. And I'm shocked that Southwest Airlines has done this. Now, I don't know when they're going to be able to implement this thing, because the seat change things is such a big deal. They have to get FAA approval to do this, okay? Now they're going to, but you just can't change seat configuration in a plane. You got to get approval from the FAA, and that'll take some time. So for the time being, they're not going to change anything. And maybe, just maybe, enough of Southwest's frequent flyers, frequent customers, business customers, will whisper in their ears saying, "Psst, hey guys, bad idea. Go back to doing the way you were. Unless you want me to go to another airline." Because I certainly will. If Southwest is exactly like American, why would I fly Southwest? Why? It's apples to apples, not apples to oranges. The things we are told for the reasons that we're told them. It makes me scratch my head and wonder what people are thinking. Well, that's it. I'm done. JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. That's my email address. All one word, JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. Send me an email. I love to read the emails. I love to read your messages. I love to correspond, and share the podcast with your friends, if you will. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. That's it. We're done. Until next time, this is James Strong saying adios.